Welcome everybody to the great witness, new Kevin Smith, Dean Kevin, who's from the UK, and he's reporting on his, or sharing his real side experiences for us to help us recognize better the isness that life is. And we're here to listen to his experiences and comment on what we see as well. So welcome Kevin to the show, and give it to you, Kevin. Thank you for being here. Jeremy and I are here as commentators. Thank you.
In this real side experience, I would see two groups of individuals, large in their numbers, like the size of opposing army factions may be. The groups were separate, not exactly sworn enemies or in a conflict with each other, but more like in a kind of mutually agreed upon standoff, though each group harboured suspicions and concerns over what the other group were doing. Each group seemed to be constantly training also, again, a little like army factions that are not exactly at war with each other, but always in preparation for the possibility. It had the sense as though there had been a confrontation of a kind, and tensions were still high, or it was just prior to and building up to confrontation between the two groups. I was with one of the groups, and I took it upon myself to spy on the other. My preferred method of spying was rendering myself invisible, and I would test the method with my own group to ensure it was working before departure, and indeed my own group would confirm their inability to see me. It also seemed the two groups were separated somehow, not by physical distance, but more like dimensions, or frequency vibrations, or perhaps positions with life, in accordance with awareness standing and recognition. In order for me to spy on the other group, I had to pass through a kind of a portal or a wormhole to reach them. It was a very colourful portal, overlapping with flowing folds of colour, all interweaving. The predominant colour was green. Anyway, I would pass through this portal conduit and conduct my spying operation. It seems there was an individual amongst their group who was very skilled and capable, and couldn't exactly see me, but could sense my presence, as though his awareness and recognition allowed him to see further than most of his group, but not quite far enough to completely perceive me and determine my identity. As he detected my presence, I would withdraw and return to my group, but this individual almost had my scent, it seemed. He was following me back through the portal. It was quite entertaining in a way to try and lose him in the endless flowing colours of the portal conduit, but he was very persistent, and I had to concentrate on maintaining my invisibility that concealed me to the extent that he would never be able to quite see me. At one point, I was creating these little decoys and deploying them, almost like how submarines will release these spinning noisy things that scramble the tracking systems of the other vessels. So the submarine that releases the decoys can't be located. Or like an aircraft might release objects that divert heat-seeking missiles away from them, that the missiles then pursue the objects instead, as an analogy, and this worked quite effectively. It seemed that these little energy decoys I was creating almost were like an extension of my own being that my pursuer was locked onto, and they would claim his attention, and he would chase after those instead. I would return to my group and told them of what had happened. They were a little concerned that I had been detected, and they seemed to harbour concerns also regarding this gifted individual from the rival group. They suggested I make myself scarce for a time, for he was bound to come here now, under the banner of peace, yes, but he would enquire as to if, and therefore why, we had been spying on his group. So maybe a glimpse of some kind of tentative alliance, before or after an event of some kind, between the Dark Force controllers and aware individuals who are not in agreement with the control the other group represented. The group I was with, representing the Nufriends and those on their process of becoming more aware, operating from a position of making sense with the whole of life, and probably being seen as opposition from the perspective of the controller group. On originally sharing this experience, Dwayne would suggest that the other group that I had elected to spy on were perhaps not the controllers, the dark forces, but more a group who had been affiliated with the new presentation, but that had stepped back, maybe retaining whatever awareness they had as a result of the process they had been on, but were rather going about their own agendas and ideas, perhaps affiliated with now, or starting their own creationally referencing spiritual paths or whatever. And like most who step back, many decide to down-tread and attempt to discredit the new presentation, even to the extent that they will interfere with new friends on the real side, in an attempt to discourage, distract, and even attack those still deciding to remain on their journeys of is recognition. For misery likes a company, and people who do step back tend to want to drag others with them back into a creation also, as though, with the more people that agree with their limited position, this reinforces their convictions that their decision made sense, even though they know on a level of themselves, their real awareness, that they have forfeited their opportunity to be real, and stand as the beings of light they and everybody is. And Dwayne would have the impression that the individual most gifted, most aware of the group of former new friends, the one who pursued me through the portal, was very possibly Chris Courage, and he perhaps had rallied other former new friends to him on the real side, with whatever ideas he was deciding upon, and what separated his group from the one I stood with was the positioning with life we had in accordance with our awareness and recognition.
You're kind of giving him an opportunity here through that experience to, he followed you back to a certain extent. So you're giving him an opportunity to come back or to see, give him another chance, because yeah, he was with us for a number of years. He was actually with Dwayne, and him were the only ones around for 3-4 years. So I think it's interesting too that I was just watching about how the CIA conducts surveillance, and they, if you're following you in a car or such, they have like 3 or 4 cars. It's not just one car that they use, but they have kind of piggy bank on each other and communicate with walkie-talkies or radios to monitor who they're following. And they have a exercise where if you're joining the CIA, you're part of it's a surveillance exercise. So you are to drive through the city and try to note who's tailing you, if anybody, and try to pick up the signs of who's ever trying to tail you. And if you, and the idea is to pass the exercise, you have to identify the cars or the people involved in tracking you. And if you can make something up and you're not being tracked, then you fail the exercise. And if you think that nobody's following you, you fail the exercise. It's very sensitive, very, so this, if it was Chris, yeah, he was trained military. He was in Iraq, so he's sensitive here and on the real side to what's what's going on around him in his environment. So it's interesting that Dwayne saw that as Chris, and he was given a chance. I see it as a hint or a chance to a reminder, if you want to say, to look at this again, because it's his life. He's throwing away his life, basically throwing away the opportunity here. It was an opportunity for the group that possibly had left the new presentation, and Kevin had an opportunity to see the group. One of the members of the group picked or sensed that someone was around. They couldn't see Kevin, but sensed that he was around and followed Kevin back through a portal, and that it was given an opportunity to come back to the new presentation, basically. At least what I saw from it.
Oh, just remind me of one of my experiences. There was a girl that she's an admin of one of Telegram's group in the field of Ho'oponopono. I don't know whether you have heard of or not. It's a method that they try to cleanse the karma, they call it data, by using 4 sentences. I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. And in that group, I've one of the guys are from that group that I know brought them to the NUUU and these things. 2 weeks ago, I had a dream that in that dream, that girl that was an admin of that group was asking from me about the ALLs, was asking me about the ALLs, and I was telling her about the is. And while I was telling her about the is, I had a really shiny feeling within my heart. But in the physical, nothing happened. She didn't came to ask me or wants me to show her the way or introduce her to the NUUU. And when I told Dwayne about this experience, he told me that Oh, you're seeing things on the real side about the people's decisions, but it doesn't mean that for sure in the physical they're going to do that, because they are still in their personal self. So maybe they come or maybe they don't, or yeah, no. And what Kevin, what's the Kevin experience? I think it's just the same. Kevin has seen the decision of that person, but there is no guarantee whether that person is going to surpass his personal self or not.
The challenge we have with our personal self, it's always sticky. Jeremy, did you get anything?
Yeah, I had a question for Kevin. You said that he was able to sense you, but he couldn't really see you, but he happened to follow you through this portal. Now, these portals that are opened, do you have to be at a certain frequency or more so of a certain awareness to actually even perceive these portals, to even go through them? Or did it kind of just open to anybody when they're open?
This was an experience I had about, again, another year and a half ago, so I'm trying to remember. Well, I mean, the portals, like everything in the experience and like in any experience, is just created, and so a lot of it is very sort of symbolic and sort of may not necessarily be anything other than something the guides utilised or I was shown through my real awareness to demonstrate or represent something else. And all it really suggested was that as I went to spy on these individuals, I was standing in a position beyond their ability to recognise. And of course, with recognition, I mean, we are this all awareness which is everywhere, but according to the extent to which we decide to stand in that real awareness and recognise it, dictates the extent of the awareness that we are, that we can stand in. And so with individuals who step back from the new presentations, and particularly, they start to retract from the real awareness that they had, and they begin to return and immerse themselves back into their personal selves more so. And so their recognition will start to also diminish. And as such, we can have those who are more aware can stand in a position where they can literally observe such individuals but can't be seen themselves. But yet, everyone will have the intuitive body as well, parts of the personal self. So even lacking the real awareness, they will detect or pick up on something. A lot of individuals are very personally self-based and are very sort of even, mainly physical, astral, can still be very sensitive to energies and situations around them. And so, as I said, from my perspective, I could see him and what they were doing, but they couldn't really perceive me, apart from the one individual who's a bit more sensitive to that which was going on around him. And as I said, he almost locked on to almost like the essence of me and followed me back through. And the portal was more just something that was part of the experience to make it probably so it sat more so in the memory than something that was actually taking place. But it was just really, all it really demonstrated was really a sort of a standing in different, almost like vibrationary frequency states. And one with the greater awareness would be able to then perceive both positions, but the one with a less awareness would be unable to see through that which is restricting and disabling them from being able to see beyond what they have decided through their personal self. So, I mean, as I said, a lot of the portals is just for added visual effects, like you would with a movie, making it more exciting. And as I said, not to say the portals can't happen or they don't. You might not. You can physically see these things, but when it comes to real side experiences, it's a lot of it is more symbolic as opposed to literal. So, but I don't know if that answers your question. Probably not.
It does very thoroughly. No, it does very thoroughly. So on the real side, things are more symbolic than they are literal. So you can't just see what it is on the surface, and so it could be a portal, but in a way not literally, like, oh, this portal.
Well, I mean, the idea of the experience was to convey to me that I was able to observe somebody else or another group of people from the greater position I had through my awareness and recognition, and they could not perceive me due to their recognition or inadequacy, and how would you then present that would make sense to my personal self, if not doing it through a position where there were portals and almost like the what would appear to be different realms or different or sort of positions which seem to be at odds with each other, and conduits that connected them. And so these things, they tend to get, these details get added to it just so the personal self can understand better what's happening. Otherwise, we would be relying more on almost like pure is sort of generated or sort of is impressions, and that would then, there's a very good chance we may not read them or understand exactly what the guides were trying to convey. So it just depends on the individual and the situations. I mean, the guides do like to stretch our recognitional abilities, but at the same time, if they want to get some information across and convey it to us, so they make to ensure that we understand, they're going to make it in the most literal way imaginable. So it just depends on the situation. But yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, you want to share the next experience? Thank you.
This RealSide experience, actually, you might remember, because I actually shared this on a UK one. I omitted a few details, but it was originally a galactic experience, but I've shortened it a bit here. In this RealSide experience, I was with a group of aware individuals. We stood at the foot of a large hill, and although steep, it certainly was not insurmountable. It was around 300 feet in height, I would have suggested. It was our objective to reach the summit, and despite the hill not being immense, the journey would not be easy. The hill was fragmented in places, with large crevices and gaping holes that we would have to carefully negotiate our way around and across. In addition to this, the hill was littered with spiders of varying distorted shapes and sizes. Many of these spiders looked extremely mutated and ranged in size from your typical garden variety to the size of cars and houses even. They presented as oppositional obstacles also to our climb, and would aggressively attack us as we would ascend. Fortunately, my group and I were not alone on our spider-strewn hill trek. We were accompanied by another, a woman. Again, with the real awareness, it can discern identity despite the forms assumed, and in this case, impressioned this female to be a real guide. This guide was in the form of the actor who plays the current role of Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker, and she would lead us up the treacherous spider hill, picking the best route to assure our ascension to the top. We had all selected weapons, nothing especially fancy, just rudimentary clubs and spider-splattering baseball bats. But they were effective enough, it seemed. About halfway up the hill, there was a small hut, and the guide would disappear inside of it momentarily, seemingly cranking up machinery of a kind. This produced an effect whereby all the spiders were seemingly deactivated and rendered helpless. Then they were all sucked as though through an invisible cyclone into the hut, and thus the hill was cleared and now devoid of spiders. The way was clear, and we would see no further sign of the guide as we continued our ascent. and we would make the summit, and there we sat with a sense of completion. The spiders evidently were some representation of opposition in regards to our journey. Many times the spiders have been experienced on the real side, and tend to be either entities of a kind, or creatures of the dark forces, and if their webbings happen to be present, these can represent tap lines too. A mountainous journey is also a fairly commonly experienced real side feature, and may demonstrate literally the arduous upward journey to the recognition and positioning with the true reality of the all is. The spiders here may well represent that which presents as obstacles to the process, the dark forces, their minions, or their ideas, as the dark forces are unceasing in their efforts to prevent anyone from leaving their controlled creational matrix. As the decider of everything in our experience, and that includes the extent to which the dark forces can hinder us, we simply can walk around all that they place in our path. It is only through agreement to the idea control tap-lining snares that they create that they can waylay or halt our process of becoming more aware. So in reality, the greatest obstacle to ultimately standing real with the is ourselves, or our personal created selves, and the agreements we maintain through the personal self. That the hill's surface was far from smooth and even, full of cracks and treacherous fissures, would demonstrate the tumultuous journey of navigating through all the ideas that make up the convoluted creational simulator, picking our way through the snares and pitfalls. Seems then we were adamant in our decision and real intent to get through these creational ideas that litter our path, to get through the personal self. The slaying of monsters or creatures can represent the removing of self-limiting and creationally restricting idea tap lines, agreements, and attachments. So such situations as these with mutated spiders may be demonstrating this tap line removing continuous process also. Perhaps the spiders at the bottom of the hill, the ideas they represented, were the easier tap lines to release and retract agreement from, the point where the real guide assisted with the removal of the others, suggested tap lines we were willing to face and release, but perhaps due to the complexity of their nature, if they were ingrained many lifetimes ago, the specifics may be difficult to determine without the real awareness overview of all we have been through, and the assistance of the real guides as to their release. For guides will remove these tap lines if we agree. Unless we choose to cling on to them, then it becomes our free will decision to retain them and remain their effects, demonstrating how the process of awareness is vastly sped up with the assistance of the guides, how they will help eradicate the karma, taking the karma on themselves and working it off from the Nufriends who have the sincerity and real intent and the heart for this is recognitional undertaking. That the guide was in the form of Doctor Who would suggest a time theme, as the Doctor Who series is very much about time travelling and such. Perhaps an indication of the limited time and small window of opportunity we have to position ourselves with the ears. Perhaps a further indication of the spiders as representing tapline agreements, which can only feature in time and space created simulations. Or even that some of these spiders may well represent the dark force time makers, as they seek to trap and snare us in cause and effect time phases. Duane suggested at the time of the sharing of this experience that how the guide dispatched the spiders through technology suggested the spiders were perhaps more mechanical, more along the lines of robotics, and like anything technological, you have but to turn off their power supply to deactivate them, and this appeared to be the situation in the experience. Minions, perhaps, of the dark forces, but maybe more mechanical assailants. And if we were indeed facing and releasing tapline agreements, as we face creation, we are confronted with situations that are a manifestation of the nature of the taplines we are releasing, opening windows of attack opportunities, as that which we afford attention, these old agreements and attachments, cause to effects, potentiality of attack and interference. But we had made it to the top of the hill, and the guide had now departed. Due to the size of the hill, it not being especially huge, I would be inclined to suggest this was one of many hills to the ears, as it is an endless journey, and often presents as one enormous mountain on the real side. But the journey to the recognition of the ears can just as readily be demonstrated as a succession of small hills. That we had assumed the summit suggested we had been victorious with this step, but there was more to go. Maybe we were even having one of those respites in creation, where the individual will take a moment of a pause to regather their resolve and determination to continue on with the process of his recognition. As we sat on our hill, 2 enormous aliens entered the scene. They were easily as tall as the hill, and so approximately 300 feet or so, and with the steepness of the hill, it being nearly vertical, we were face to face with these aliens. They seemed to be in the form of greys, but it was as though they were made of soft material, like cuddly toy grey aliens. I would suggest they were disguising their real intentions, concealing their real identities that would have fooled the personal self. Without the real awareness and ability to discern deception that it provides, perhaps we may have seen these beings in this form they presented themselves as though they were attempting to present as harmless. But here we saw them in the form of enormous cuddly toy greys, but through the real awareness we could discern these to be fabricated outward forms, as we could see the real forms that lurked beneath the outward exteriors, through seams and splits in the material. They seemed more reptilian, and as they grinned at us, razor-sharp teeth were revealed, and they absolutely exuded evil intent and malice. As we sat there, it was as though we had a group impression that these beings had been abducting some of the Nufriends and myself prior to us finding the new presentation. That we may have had no personal self-recollection of abduction isn't uncommon, as the alien abductors can blank the memory of such events. But again, the real awareness knows all the happenings in creation and of its various lifetimes and experiences, regardless of memory erasing techniques, and was affording us this information now. With real awareness connection and the protection of the guides, it's likely such abductions would have ceased, once the decision to connect with the ears was made through the NUUU song. But always we decide everything in our experience, and often unsavory situations can occur due to our subconscious and even conscious agreement to it. Often the guides may let such experiences play out to demonstrate that we must also be more responsible with what we agree to and bring into our experiences. These beings may well have been reptilian Orions in disguise, as their stature of 300 feet or so would be typical of the size of this species, and they certainly boasted a very daunting set of razor-sharp teeth. We all had the impression that due to our previous abductions by these aliens, that even with the connection with our real awareness, there were still some underlying, unconscious, subconscious agreements that would make these two aliens hard to handle, as it were. Agreements that had allowed the abductions in the first place, and still a lingering subconscious, unresolved agreement that made these aliens a continued menace. And perhaps reaching the top of this particular hill had allowed the awareness of these prior abductions to be apparent to us. But this was a situation we couldn't handle at this moment, due to the complication of various facets and intertwined agreements that may yet perhaps need releasing. Consequently, we wouldn't be battling these aliens as we did the spiders. Instead, we elected to teleport to safety. One by one, we ported from this hill, as these aliens came for us. One of them opened its razor-sharp teeth-filled mouth wide to consume me, just as I activated my own teleport and was removed from harm's way. Maybe one final reminder of how any agreement, any idea, will not only facilitate the presence of situations we'd rather not have, but that a single idea, regardless of what it is, if agreed with, can consume us, can absorb us back into a creation, as the alien opened its mouth wide to demonstrate just this.
Thanks, Kevin. Your journey up the hill reminds me of a documentary I saw last night. It was called The Most Dangerous Ways to School. And these kids, each episode was how kids take these dangerous journeys just to go to school. And it's just kind of like us. It's in a way dangerous, but and it's adventurous, and it's necessary if we want to wake up to take this journey. And one of the episodes was about the Filipino kids that had to climb almost a vertical mountain. They had roots to climb, to hang on to, but it was slippery. Often it would rain, tropical forest, it would rain, so the rocks were slippery. This 11-year-old girl would go to school every day. It took her 2 to 3 hours to get there every day. And she'd climb this mountain. And sometimes she would escort, there was a 6 and 7-year-old boys that she escorted one day. Sometimes they travel in groups in case one of them falls. The older kid would get on the bottom to catch the younger kids. But this is all what they had to go through just to get education. There's another episode talking about Kenya, Africa, and how the kids would have to go through the savannah. And of course, there's going to be lions, monkeys, boars. The most dangerous animal was the elephant, because the elephants would attack. But these were small kids too. There was like a 4-year-old accompanied with an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old that was going. It was 20 kilometers every day to school and back. And they had to brave, the environment just to get there. Be hot, wild animals, sometimes robbers, so that's kind of like where we are too. We have to face it all to get to this awareness that we are, but it's all worth it. It's like these kids, it was worth them to get the education that they thought they needed to get somewhere in life, not just be a cow herder or a fisherman. Their parents thought that the kids needed to be more. And Dwayne and I were talking about, well, it's not too bad just being a fisherman. It's okay, If you have an awareness, it's okay. If you can have the awareness to survive in your environment. You don't need to go on to be a doctor or an engineer. But no, it's like this experience, facing the spiders and all that. There's always something out there to prevent us from seeing more.
I had lots of experience with the spiders. I have seen them lots of times, especially in the physics. I mean the astral spiders, not the physical. Most of the times when I was asleep, so suddenly I opened my eyes and saw some spiders, maybe on the refrigerator, on the wall, on the ground. Some of them, our parameters are different with yours, so I'm giving you with our parameters. Our parameters is centimeters. Some of them were about 3 or 4 centimeters. I don't know how much inch it would be. I have seen them that they were about 1 meter. They were really big. They were, walking on the ground in the room. And in the physical, the spiders is a symbol for me, and it has the exactly meaning that Kevin just gave us. When I see spiders in the physical, when I notice the spiders, notice is different with the seeing. Seeing, you look everywhere, you see things, but sometimes your, your sight, your vision, just directed to something. I call this noticing. When I notice the spiders or their web, I realize that now I have enough obstacles, especially in the real side. I have enough obstacles, or when I'm seeing a spider is creating a web, I am seeing, I realizing that, oh, it must be the reptilian, that they are creating obstacles for me. And I will start doing the NUUU, and change my intent, focus on the east, on the all east, to remove that obstacles. And when I remove it, again, the physics, I will see another signs. For example, a feather, or a flower, or a butterfly, things like this. That I realized that these are somehow positive signs that are telling me, oh, okay, now it's now you're focused, now you're on the right path. And exactly as Kevin just said, the spiders are telling us that we are under attack of the top lines, and maybe we have some agreement so that they can attack us. This was my experience with the spiders.
Anybody else who'd like to comment?
Yeah, I would like to make a quick comment. It's something that Kevin said real early on, and if he comment a little more on it, that the dark forces, the ones that would wish to have us here as slaves and so on, they present to us things for our agreement, ideas, phenomena, and all types of other distortion. And so you said that realistically, the only thing that holds us back is ourselves, because they can present it, but it lies on our agreement to these things that will hold us back. And I thought that was interesting, because that's why this is so important, this becoming more aware, so you can face these agreements, because it's been us this whole time holding ourselves back, whether consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously. So if you could comment on that too. Thank you.
Yeah, as you were saying, we create our entire experience. We are the deciders. We are the movie makers. Everything is according to our design. Nothing can feature in it without our agreement that it is there, and that includes the dark forces and all their ideas. And the only way they can feature in our experience is if we agree to them. And the majority of the agreements are, of course, subconscious, and have been ingrained in for lifetimes, and they're obviously still there, following us lifetime to lifetime. Just because, of course, we get a new body form, it doesn't mean we are then liberated from the agreements we have made previously. And until we face all the agreements, they are retained for thousands of millions of lifetimes, and the dark forces can constantly play on these agreements that lurk in our subconscious, in which they can feature in the effects that they generate. It's like we're almost rolling out the welcome mat for them, or leaving the door permanently open based on our agreements. I mean, broadly speaking, if we agree to be controlled, which is basically the bottom line of all the agreements that the controllers troll from us, we are effectively creating a movie in which will feature individuals that at any point can enter the experience and play the roles of the controllers, and whatever form and they decide to take in that regard. And so yeah, it just comes to the point where we simply recognize all these agreements, and we start to detach and remove them and release them. And but of course, as we are operating in creation, we always are creating something. And unfortunately, then when we do operate in creation, we are then coming up against the ideas of others, and there will be the confrontation will follow as a result of that. And as there was an experience I was writing the other day, I can't remember which one it was for now, but I said along the lines of, it would be very easy when you became more aware to simply sit in that real awareness and the new nowness of your real awareness, and literally be devoid from all ideas that can affect your creational experience, if you got to the point where you had detached significantly enough subconscious agreements that could be so, but on the other hand, we are here to participate in life and play an active role. We are here to share, to earn our way, and to do that we have to operate in creation. We have to create all these constant effect causes that of course then others can then feature in the effects of, and so on and so forth. But okay.
It's like you said though too, because I'm reading book 7, and in it he says that the time trappers are the people that create this phenomena, that in creation all you're doing is you're creating. It's not that when you see things moving in a scene, it's not that like if I were to take this pen and move it from this position over here, it's not that it correlates in time and space. That's the appearance of it, but every single position is a new position. It's a created time frame. So just simply, it was interesting to me to think about that or consider it realistically, is that even by us viewing the scenes that are created by the dark forces and considering them to be so, we're standing in agreement to them that, oh, like things are moving and all that stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we agree to time as well and stuff like that, whereas it seems that other species are not so restricted. They seem to be able to operate in and out of these time phases, and obviously they utilise very dangerous technology to do so. But like as is experienced with a lot of the abductions, people will be abducted by aliens and then they'll report missing time, and a lot of times that the ones abducted will be returned maybe months later, but for them only a few moments have gone by. So it does seem that the dark forces can move beyond the agreement idea of time, and then almost then be able to reinsert themselves back into it at any point they like. So it's quite interesting how they seem to be able to do that. But yeah.
Another aspect to agreement is in being indifferent to it. If you agree to something and be indifferent to it, you've got a handle on it, you could say, more so. You have more options and opportunities to move around it and negotiate it somehow. Another thing I saw last night, which relates, is the MK Ultra, the CIA mind control techniques, and Scientology and CIA were, Ron Hubbard from Scientology may have gotten some of this information from the CIA handbook on how to counter mind control, but lie detector, or what Scientology has, is called an e-meter. You hold 2 cans. It has electrical charge to where if you have an emotion, it picks it up. The meter moves. If you have any kind of emotion related to, when somebody says like, hey, or fear, or porpoise, if there's any kind of emotional reaction, it'll pick it up on the meter. And same with the lie detector. It reads emotional responses that your body just almost can't help, but they learn how to play this meter or play the lie detector just by being indifferent, you could say, to questioning. If you're being interrogated, you can learn how to not react in a way by being either through agreement, through agreeing to what, not resisting it, or through indifference, whatever your particular technique is. But it's kind of interesting that the real guides are indifferent. They can play in creation, be immersed in it, but yet be indifferent to it, so it doesn't either not affect. We want to be more cause in terms of how we relate to it, and not be bounced around as much. And that's kind of what we're learning, how to be creative with it and not affect.
But I wanted to tell you one of my experiences. I forgot your experience, but just reminded me that experience. I have written an article about when the real guides will remove the top lines from us. And this article is made of all my experiences and the questions that I have asked Dean about. For a long time, I've been asking Dean why the real guys doesn't remove some sort of top lines, or why those top lines return. For example, you see the NUUU and those top line will be removed, but again in the next day, yesterday, next day, tomorrow, and the next week, those top lines return. And Dean was always telling me that that's why you are keep deciding those top lines. And I didn't understand the meaning of deciding in that time till about maybe 6 months ago. That at first I understood what doing meant, and I wrote this article. In this article, I have created and explained 5 parameters about when those top lines will be removed. The first parameter is that at first you should know that this is you that created that top line, that agreement. The second is that you have to recognize it. What's the top line? You have to recognize it. The third parameter is that you have to intend and decide that you don't want that top line anymore. And the fourth parameter is that you should be sincere. There's a difference between intent and the sincere. I explained it in that article that the intent is, oh, I want a pizza. I want a pizza and I'm standing on the couch and waiting for a pizza. But when I'm sincere to have a but when I'm sincere on having pizza, I will go put on my clothes and go out of the house and searching, looking for the pizza. So this is the meaning of sincerity. First, I intend it, then I start walking and moving in that way. If you have these 4 parameters, those top line will be removed. And the fifth one is not to decide it again. The thing that happens to us lots of the times, for example, I have some personal issues that still it's happening in my dream visions. Still they're trying to tap line me. Although I have decided and I'm sincere that I want those tap line to be removed, still they're trying to tap line me, especially in my dreams. And the point is that you have to try not to decide in those tap lines again. I remember in an experience that in those days, it applies to maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, that I had started reading the dark side of the light seekers by Debbie Ford. I'm sure you have heard of the book. Yeah, it had the practice that you will meet your real self, and you will meet with your dark shadow. When I did the practice of, okay, I have sensed it, I had experience with that, then I sang the NUI and go to sleep. In my sleep, I see that I was in the living room, and in the sleep, I know that, oh, I had slept in my own room. So I told myself it might be the genes that have moved me, or something else had happened. I went to my parents' room and saw that the room was empty. In that time, I realized that, oh, I'm in the inner. So when I knew that I'm in the inner, so I told myself, so there is no root. I started levitating and floating in that area, and entered my room. And then I decided that I want to see my darkest shadow. When I decided that, I passed through the room and went to the kitchen and exactly entered from the, I don't know what do you call it, the place that water comes from, the wash the dishes. I entered that part, and between the walls, there was a space. I go down, I went down, and there was a man with long hair, beard, and he was chained, and he was so aggressive, and I was frightened and hold myself back, and I called, oh, the real one, come on, heal this part. When I told Dwayne about this experience, he told me that at first there is no higher self or such things. You yourself are the real awareness in that experience. Second, there is no need to heal that. Okay, this shadow is there, but there is no need to heal that. And as I remember, Dwayne said, just like a plant that you don't water, it'll vanish. And from that answer, I realized that for removing some kind of agreement and tap lines, we should be aware not to decide it again. And we keep not deciding those tap lines. They're just a plan. At first, you will remove the branches, then you will remove the main parts, then in the end, you will remove the roots. Those tap lines will be removed from us. And the 5 parameters are really important.
Okay, let's go on. Seems like it's 3 experiences are good for each episode here, Kevin. So let's do the 3rd one and finish it up with this one. Thank you.
This real side experience was similar to ones that Pierce, another new friend from the UK, has described, where on a few occasions he found himself with other new friends in a circle on the real side, and there would be these dark entity-like creatures lurking beyond the perimeter of the circle they were stood within. This real side experience began as I transitioned from physical awareness to the state between the physical and the real side, as I lingered in what I refer to as the in-between state for a few moments. In this position of awareness between the physical and the real side, even as my eyes are sealed, I will have a visual perception of my physical level room, but features, elements, and even individuals from the real side can bleed over and be present in my room also. As everything is, and we are this everything real awareness, everything is available in every new moment of our real awareness. But the creational view that we have at any given moment, like a piece from this isness everything, is according to the decisions we make and what the real awareness and the guides wish to show us. Usually then, our view is limited to the physical level, as we perceive through the senses of it during waking. But when we put aside the personal vehicle for sleep, we now can see the greater part of creation, the real side, and through the real awareness, we can also see more than just the simulation of creation we have placed our awareness within, a limited simulation of the personal self, through the way we have designed and decided on the construction of the created consciousness. So the real side and the physical level are all here and now, and having my awareness bridging the 2 positions simply allows my personal self to have a simultaneous view. As I perceive elements from the real side, I would not have perceived were my view locked into the senses of the physical vehicle only. From this in-between state, I would see then a dark shadowy creature crouched close to where I lay, watching me, but beyond that, doing very little. I took it to be another entity of a kind, and went to sleep, and onto the real side I would go. they experience more impressions than a visual personal self-experience. But I was with new friends, and we were in a group. Being and maintaining ourselves in this group afforded us protection from other dark shadowy beings that were prowling around in the place we found ourselves in, creatures similar in appearance to the one that had been previously watching me in my bedroom. There seemed to be vast quantities of these dark creatures, and not just in our immediate vicinity, but seemingly extending in every direction. They must have been quite capable creatures, as the general sense was that our combined group was necessary, that we could keep ourselves safe, and that to remain wherever it was we were currently positioned would assure our continued safety. But the impressions were that we must go outward from the safety that this position presented, and accomplish a task or other, but to do so would have us at great risk from these creatures. If we managed to return to this group and position safely once we had achieved our task, we also would be in some way allowing these creatures the ability to breach the defense that this primary position and new friend group presented, almost as though the necessary task would somehow allow them to breach our defenses. So these may well be the same creatures Pierce encountered, and on a few occasions I have encountered very powerful entities that were far harder to dispel with the standard NUUU song method of repelling all beings and individuals of an ill-intended nature, and my impression of these creatures here were of very formidable entities. This experience was very much a case of that as we recognize the real awareness that we are, as we become more aware of it and learn to stand in the reality of it, it is a reality aside from creation, and a reality beyond cause and effect and the experiences that are generated from the decisions, agreements, and choices we make. It is a reality that assures safety consequently, as experiences of being attacked, or any experience for that matter, can only take place in cause and effect creation. For an attack to be so, there must be causes that effect the opportunity for such to take place, agreements to control generally that allow the ever potentiality of the controllers featuring in the effects we have provided for them. We are designing our simulated creational reality, making our movie, and deciding on the roles within our simulated movie. And through what we decide, we open up the various roles other individuals can assume that align with the design of our simulation. If we want villains and attackers in our movies, then agreement to control overwhelmingly will be an open door to the controllers to step into these roles we have created. Rather tempting then to stand in this real awareness, in the nowness of the isness, and not participate, not create, to be in creation, but aside from any effects. However, the process of awareness is such that we need to create, to generate experiences that we can become more aware through. We need the comparisons that the experiences provide to recognize the is by. We also need to earn our way, earn our awareness, and through the sharing and promoting of the true reality, of extending the opportunity to others, the is shares with us, as everything equals itself. As we share, we are generating effects that will potentially include confrontation, attacks, and even possibly elimination. The whole idea is to face all of creation, all of life, become fully aware and conscious of a creation we have participated in the distortion of, to release all agreements and attachment idea taplines that bind us to creation and that are contributing to the overall distortion of the simulator. To be risk takers and put the whole of life, our real awareness, before the personal self, and any fears, qualms, concerns, attacks, tortures, and even death the physical created body may have to go through as we do so. In this real side experience, then, we had the greater safety of remaining where we stood, which represented this nowness real awareness reality, with the mutual support of the other aware individuals we were with the monsters prowling around us, that represented overall the perils and dangers of creation. And as was the demonstration, we had the urge, the real awareness nudge, to step out beyond the safety of this nowness position, to do what is necessary to share the true reality, to play our part, but at the same time risk the confrontation, risk the attacks. For now, we had stepped into the cause and effect arena of creation by doing so, and the monsters will have their opportunities. But again, the personal self and creation has nothing to do with the real awareness of what we actually are, and the real awareness, and the real intent, and the real guides will afford us a greater protection even as we operate in creation as we do, but there are no guarantees. And although the body vehicles can be destroyed, the awareness we have gleaned through the operating of the body forms is retained, assuming we maintain our real intent, and the process of becoming more aware and recognizing the is rolls on.
Do you have a comment, Mother Mary, today? Any words of wisdom?
Just I know that many obstacles, I don't know how I could describe it, but many obstacles is here, and I must face with. Sometimes I'm in a very, very touchy situation, and I don't know why I need to cry very much. But I told myself, okay, singing NUUU and continue it. Everything is going to be okay.
You're in the right place. even though
right
it's
here.
challenging. Yeah, you're in the right place, even though it's challenging. There's no better position you could be in anyway.
No, just saying as a word that continue the way is a hope, as a hint of being completely powerful with your intent, with your real intent. You must do many things. You must be here. You must focus on ease, and then like this kind of this, yeah. Because I'm the role of mom of Dwayne. So it is funny.
Yeah, after a while, you kind of get used to it. You're going to get the hang of what process works for you. There's a kind of a procedure that works for each of us. And after a while, you get used to like how to see it and how to face the obstacles and all that. It's always a challenge, but there's usually a way, for me at least, there's been a way to approach it so I can keep going, so it doesn't bury me. So you do it at your own pace, and you find out what the procedure is for you, how to get these challenges, how to work with them, how to manage them.
And in the military service, I faced with lots of problems. Most of the times, the real guys showed me the problem before it happens, and maybe 70 to 80% of them I could remove them before happening or after happening, and I had lots of experience of it. For example, in one of the experience, I saw that they're going to send me guarding, and in that experience, I knew that I have gone my turn, and they're going to send me for extra turn for guarding. I was in the instructional section, and in the gym, I told them, if you send me guarding again, I will claim you. Sorry, I forgot the word completely. I disagree with them. I told them I will do something, and then I was seeing that I was in the guarding place, but I wasn't guarding, and there was nothing hard for me. Then in the morning that I woke up, I realized, oh, today something is going to happen. So I started singing the NUUU and focusing on the ease and placing my intent on the ease. And when the calculation of the soldiers finished and I entered the secretary office, I was the secretary there, and the commander came and told us that the chief commander wants the profile of one of the soldiers, and we were the ones that managed the profiles. But the profile, the paper that the chief commander wanted, there was not in his documents. I have a sudden intuition or something like that, that search in the arranged profiles, not the unarranged, because that paper wasn't in the unarranged. So we started searching in the arranged documents, and I myself found that document that we have placed the wrong paper in that document. And I gave them, and the commander left. After 10 minutes, one of the soldiers that was the substitute of that commander came in and write down the name of us and told us that the chief commander is going to send you to guarding for 2 times as a punishment. Exactly what I have seen in my dreams. But my intuition told me to stay relaxed and continue your practicing. And what happened was that the punishment just vanished. Nothing happened. And in that place, that chief commander was a man that everyone was afraid of, and no one could disobey him. But something happened with awareness, was that the punishment, just finished, just vanished, and nothing happened. And I had lots of these experiences in the base, in the military service. And whenever something happened to me or I faced an obstacles, I just went in mutation. It's a word I made of meditation and the NUUU. I entered the mutation or entered a mutation focusing on the ease. And so usually after 20 or 30 minutes, I came out. And when I was in the mutation, when I focus and place my intent on the ease and keep it there, all the subconscious agreement in that time will be removed. And most of the times I could solve the problems that had happened in the military service. For example, there was a time that the substitute of our commander, because of a foolish reason, told me I was a secretary there. I was the secretary there, and for a foolish reason, told me to go and write down your jail paper. And he repeated it 3 times, and somehow he was certain about that. And I entered the mutation while I was disappointed that maybe I could ditch that jail or something like that. And when I entered the mutation and continued after 20 minutes or 30 minutes, then I need the sign of the substitute commander. So I entered his room again and gave him the paper that I wanted him to sign. And he told me, "Did you write down your jail paper?" I said no, and he told me, "You don't have to." And he was really kind. And I had lots of these experiences that when I face an obstacles, at first I told myself, okay, this is one of my subconscious agreement. And I will try to, if I know that subconscious agreement, I decided to be removed. I decided to let it go. And if I don't know, I just decide the real awareness. I just decide the is, the all is, or seeing the NUUU. And all the subconscious agreement that I don't know about them will be removed. And most of the times I could solve that problem. And if I couldn't, and if I don't, the acceptance of that problems comes. So I can accept that problems and face it and deal with it. This was my experience.
We'll sing the NUUU if everybody's okay with that. And thank you, Kevin, for everything, for all the experiences and sharing with us today. You're the great witness. Thank you for being here. We're here every Wednesday at noon, and Sundays also. It's 11 Pacific time. That's when we record, at least. So thank you again, everybody. Kevin, do you have anything to say? Last words?
No last words from me. Just thank you everyone for attending and sharing your experiences and being part of it. It's all good fun.
Okay, I'll start it, and then we'll go do the round of NUUUs here. NUUU. Jeremy.
NUUU.
And Kevin.
NUUU.
See you next time.